achieved.
That was quite possibly the best UFC main card I have ever seen. Maybe you've seen better, but that's the best one I've ever seen. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. And on this episode of the show, we're breaking down the upcoming UFC Fight Night 72, which will take place Saturday, July 18th in Glasgow, Scotland. It'll actually take place in the morning where I am, 10 a.m., so make sure you check your time, depending on where you're located, to make sure you don't miss out. Now, we are coming off one heck of a fantastic UFC 189. Now, the prelims left a little bit to desired. We got all the way to the main event of the prelims and left it to Matt Brown and Tim Means to get us really going, and they did. They got us off to a great start, and then the pay-per-view was awesome. 5 finishes, 2 title fights, exciting fashion. Exciting, start to finish. We have Conor McGregor as the new interim featherweight champion, and the match with Jose Aldo has taken on more significance now that he's beaten Chad Mendes. Now, of course, everybody will point at Mendes and say, oh, he took the fight on short notice, he was injured, blah, blah, blah. Conor McGregor still knocked him out. No one has been able to beat him other than Jose Aldo, and McGregor did it. Obviously, Mendes, commendable for what he did, had a lot of success with his wrestling, but nonetheless, the important thing is McGregor is the champion and challenging the actual champion, Jose Aldo. Also, Robbie freaking Lawler, what a warrior that guy is. Taking it, and props to Rory McDonald, he was right with him, and of course, I've read that the judges had him up 3 rounds to 1 going into the final round, and that's disappointing because I would have won some serious money if Rory McDonald come through. And that's my son Ace in the background. He is hanging out in the studios with Dad today, so you might hear him periodically. Even though I'm coming off a pretty fantastic run right now. I've gone 7-2. I went 7-2 at the finale, 8-3 at UFC 189, 7-2 the card before that. I've won some serious money, picked up some pretty solid upsets, including Gunnar Nelson and Jeremy Stevens over Dennis Bermudez was pretty solid. The bet packs are selling like hotcakes. You can buy this UFC Fight Night 72 bet pack for $10, or you can buy the remaining couple of bet packs for, I'll probably put it on sale for $15. I'll give you some kind of discount. Either way, certainly get in while the opportunity is hot, while I'm rolling. UFC Fight Night 71 is not taking place as of recording. This actually happens tonight, so I'm looking forward to another strong outing there. And that's enough rambling for me. We've got a pretty good 6-fight main card here in Glasgow, so let's take a look at that first matchup. We kick things off in the UFC's lightweight division as Stevie Braveheart Ray of Scotland, 17-5-0, battles Leandro Mafra of Brazil with a current record of 12 wins and 2 losses. Now, as Stevie Ray is fighting at home in Scotland, so certainly that will be his advantage. He trains alongside Jojo Calderwood and Robert Whiteford, 2 of the more noteworthy Scottish fighters. He's the former Cage Warriors lightweight champion, and he took his debut on short notice, so certainly he'll have a little more comfortable coming into this matchup, as this is his second UFC appearance. His first was a TKO win over Marcin Bandel for Mafra. This is the fourth time he's fought in the UFC. This is his second run overall. He's coming off his first win, which was pretty impressive. Physically, same measurements, both 5'10", both with 70-inch reach. Ray is 1 year younger, and as I said, Mafra has made his lightweight debut in his last fight. So he's used to fighting slightly bigger guys. The Brazilian, 8 wins by knockout, 1 loss overall. He's 1-1 in fights ended by submission, 3-0 when he goes the distance. He's a shoot box wrestler, so certainly comes out of that academy. We kind of know what they're all about. For Stevie Ray, 5 wins by knockout, 8 submission wins. He's 4-1 when going the distance. The big number that stands out for him for losses is 4 losses by submission. Now, the Scottish fighter is a decent striker, but he likes to have time and space. He throws a nice left hand and a nice left kick as well. In his last fight, he had trouble getting bullied on the cage, and he got stuck there by Bandel, and you go back to one fight earlier against Kurt Warburton in a fight he won, but I saw similar things where he was getting pinned on the cage and really had no answer for the position. In his last fight, though, he took advantage of a fighter that was continually looking for leg locks and attempting to go for those submissions, and eventually tired himself out. He has a good double leg overall when he does try and implement the wrestling game, disguises it well with striking. Solid top game, ground and pound can lead to a finish. At times, he will give up position for submission, and that can be a mistake. Now, for Mafra, nasty Muay Thai. 6 first-round knockouts. He throws very hard leg kicks, good combinations, and he will finish his combinations with a leg kick. He outlanded his last opponent 94-44. Good pressure, coming forward, constantly keeping on them, and lands some nice elbows in close. He will get wild at times. He's willing to take a shot to land a shot. He needs to move his head a little bit more for my liking. He did get clipped in his last fight early on. He did show some solid wrestling in that last matchup, which caught me a little bit off guard, and I was glad to see it because I did pick him to win. He has a pretty good double leg takedown. He landed 5 of 6 takedowns, defended all 5 of his opponent's shots. So that's, was a pretty surprising turnaround in the wrestling for him. Cardio is a bit of a question mark, especially if he gets wild, but he did look good in his 155-pound debut, and it carried fairly well throughout the matchup. I think he should be more comfortable here in a second appearance at this weight class. The time change is a possible impact for Mafra coming out of Brazil going to Scotland. There's a possibility of the hostile environment impacting as well. But I think overall his leg kicks will take away from Ray's movement and possible takedown opportunities. I think the pressure and combinations of Mafra are going to give Ray a lot of trouble. I think look for the Brazilian to have success with his wrestling, keep Ray constantly on the defensive, backing up, and not nearly as effective coming forward. A knockout is possible, but my prediction is Leonardo Mafra to defeat Stevie Ray by decision. Bumping up just one division, we're in the UFC's welterweight division as Leon Rocky Edwards, 9-2-0, battles Pawlak of Poland with a record of 11 wins and 1 loss. Now, Edwards so far is 1-1 in the UFC. He's coming off an 8-second knockout of Seth Baczynski, which is pretty darn impressive. For Pawlak, he's also 1-1, coming off a decision win over Sheldon Westcott. Now, Pawlak looked much better in his second fight. He's coming out where he was coming off the first loss of his career. And one thing with his resume, you look back, he had fought some very low-level competition. Where Leon Edwards, he came into the UFC as the Bama welterweight champion and really turned some heads as a very young fighter. Both guys 6 feet tall. Edwards will have a 1-inch reach advantage, and he is 2 years younger. Now, Pawlak overall, 9 wins by knockout, 3 submission wins, and he's 2-1 in decision. Edwards, 5 wins by knockout, 2 submission wins, and he's 2-1 going the distance, and he has 1 loss. His only loss before his last fight was by disqualification. Now, Pawlak, his striking is a work in progress. He does throw a nice head kick periodically, a lot of single shots mainly, and he was getting outworked by Peter Sabata in his debut at range, and that really cost him that opening round. He can work in close, knees in the clinch, but he's not very strong in that position. He tends to get bullied around a little bit. He had a lot of trouble creating separation versus Sabata and Sheldon Westcott early on. Ultimately, he beat Westcott because he fended off his takedowns, forced him to work hard, and eventually out-scrambled him when he wore down. Pawlak is a BJJ purple belt. He has a decent top game if he can get it there. The question is, can he get it there? Edwards, he's a striking-based fighter. He wants to keep this fight vertical. He took out Seth Baczynski with a beautiful straight left counter to a low kick, and he showed what kind of power, even though Seth does have a bit of a questionable chin at this point in his career. He's a good striker. He hits exceptionally hard. Not a big combination thrower. He throws a lot of single strikes, but he can work together, and his power makes it that much more effective. He can also work in the clinch very well, and he'll find success here in this match, but I think Pawlak has issues in that position. His takedown defense is a bit of a question. He was taken down 3 times in his debut by a fairly low-level wrestler, a grappler, BJJ player, and he can get trapped on his back if he's not smart. He will punish fighters, so he's very athletic, and he will punish his opposition on takedown attempts with knees and elbows in close. He's a pretty decent scrambler, and he will strike when scrambling and do some damage, and we saw a little bit, if he does get taken down, he can spring back to his feet if the initial takedown isn't, put him square on his back. Pawlak was having a lot of trouble with the striking of Sabata. Go back to his debut. He was backing up and conceding a lot of ground and letting his opponent get off first. Edwards should be able to replicate those issues and have more impact. I think he's a stronger striker than Sabata. If Pawlak can get this fight to the mat, that'll be his key to victory, but I think Edwards defends the takedowns, does damage in close, hurts him at range, and my prediction is Leon Edwards to defeat Pawlak by knockout. The next fight on the main card features the first ranked fighter we're going to encounter as we head to the women's strawweight division as the number 9th ranked Joanne Calderwood with a record of 9-1-0 of Scotland, taking out late injury replacement Cortney Casey Sanchez, currently holding a record of 4 wins and 1 loss. Now, Casey Sanchez is replacing Beck Rollins on approximately 8 days' notice. For Calderwood, she's fighting at home in Scotland, and she is in need of a big win. She's coming off a pretty significant upset loss. She was a very heavy favorite. She got submitted very quickly. She also had a pretty disappointing loss on The Ultimate Fighter, and she's been underperforming of late overall, and it's taken a big step back in her title aspirations. For Casey Sanchez, she overall has just 6 pro bouts, 8 fights as an amateur though, including a split decision loss to Emily Kagan, and she did spend some time at atomweight, so she could be moving up a little bit. I haven't seen overall what she's been fighting at recently, but I think the last time I saw a weight shown, she was at atomweight. Now, 5 pro opponents overall, their combined record 18 wins and 14 losses, so pretty respectable overall for a lower level women's competitor, fighting under the PXC and XFC, so two pretty reputable organizations. Only one opponent in that run with a record below 500. She fought just 4 months ago. She's finished all 4 of her opponents in the first round that she's defeated, 2 by TKO, 2 by subs. She has a 39-second corner stoppage, so she must have been putting a heck of a lot of damage on her opposition to get the corner to stop the fight only 39 seconds in. Maybe it was a TKO after maybe they stopped there, maybe there's a cut, I don't know. Couldn't find the footage. 2 pro subs by rear naked choke, but her last 3 amateur bouts, she all won by armbar, including a flying armbar, and that's what JoJo was caught in her last fight with, and that's what Rose Namajunas caught her with on the show, so certainly something to be aware of there. If they tie up, look for Sanchez to try and rotate to her back and try and get in a position to look up a rear naked choke, and that's something, overall I expected her to try and do, because JoJo is an excellent striker. She has 4 wins by TKO, but we've seen a little bit of that shine come off of late, because she has gone the distance in 4 of her last 5 wins, plus with that win over Emily Kagan on the show, 5 of her last 6 times in action we've seen her go to the judges' scorecards. She has had issues being a little bit complacent, not pulling the trigger, and not being as aggressive as people would like to see her. Against Seohee Ham, I'm going to apologize for butchering her name. She had all kinds of trouble with her footwork and quickness, but that shouldn't be the case here, as Casey Sanchez is pretty straightforward with her striking, offering a 1-2 and some kicks. I think the newcomer will have a slight height advantage, which is not normal for JoJo to deal with. She's usually a bigger fighter. Coming into this, there's a lot of pressure on JoJo. If she loses at home to another UFC newcomer, consider her hype train completely derailed, and she's not going to get cut by any stretch of the imagination, but she'll be out of the top 10 by far, and no one will be talking about her as a possible future contender. 8 days notice, though, is a lot for Sanchez to take this fight on with, and she has minimal experience overall. Only 1 pro bout going beyond the first round doesn't help either, especially if this fight goes deeper and JoJo can simply wear out. So my prediction is that JoJo Calderwood is going to get it going at home, and she defeats Cortney Casey Sanchez by TKO. Fight number 4 in the main cards matchup I'm very much looking forward to, mainly because one of the participants is Irish Joe Duffy, 13-1-0, takes on Brazil's Ivan Batman George with a current record of 26 wins and 4 losses. How can you not like a guy named Batman? Either way, we'll find out. I think he's going to win this matchup. Now, Duffy looked exceptional in his debut, and George is coming off a win over Josh Shockley coming in. He's 2-1 in the UFC to date, fighting outside of Brazil for the first time, so that's something worth note, because we'll see Brazilian fighters obviously have an advantage at home. Will they have an atmospheric advantage here? Absolutely not. Duffy, though, he's more known for what he's done before the UFC. He submitted Conor McGregor, the new interim featherweight champion, in just 38 seconds, and he followed that up with a submission win over Norman Park, back-to-back fights in 2010, and he's the last man to beat Conor McGregor, and he's certainly trying to ride that horse into some notoriety in the UFC. For George, he's the Jungle Fights lightweight champion, or at least he was prior to signing with the UFC. Duffy, the only loss he has in his career was with the Cage Warriors lightweight title on the line, so unfortunately came up short in that situation. Physically, Duffy 1 inch taller, same reach advantage, the Irish Joe 8 years younger. Now, Duffy, 4 wins by knockout, including his debut. He has 8 wins by submission and 1 decision. For George, he's 13-0 in fights that have ended by submission, 10-2 when he goes the distance, but a very questionable 3 wins, 2 losses when fights end by knockout. The Brazilian, a BJ black belt. He's also a black belt in Luta Livre. For Duffy, a black belt in Taekwondo and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. He also holds a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So guys, both with some solid accreditations. Duffy, very well-rounded. Good submission game. He has a solid boxing background. He went 7-0 as a professional boxer. He moves exceptionally well, has good defense, strong output rate, very smooth striker, very calm, doesn't get flustered. At least that's not what I've seen in his the footage so far. He throws some very hard leg kicks. He went high to hurt Lindsay before actually finishing with a high kick. He started with a high kick and eventually finished him with some good strikes to follow up, including a blistering shot to the body. He carries his hands a little bit low for my liking, and his lead leg can be a target, which he tends to load up on, something we see from boxers, and an opponent can hone in on it and do some damage. It could take away some of his striking capabilities. For George, he's not a massive striking threat, though. Not quick or very smooth. He is strong, though, and he could crack him with a single shot, and that could change the complexion of the match, but I'm not foreseeing that happening. When he fought Rodrigo Dam, for the most part, he was losing the striking matchup there, and Dam, a capable striker is no Joe Duffy. Best bet for George is to grapple with Duffy. Not a pretty fight, make it ugly, get in there and really push him. He had a heavy takedown game versus Shockley, landing 3 takedowns, 2 against Keith Wisniewski in his welterweight debut when he first joined the UFC on short notice, and that's what he wants to do here. Fairly stout, likes to work opponents into the cage, takedowns in the clinch position, that's what his MO should be. He does have the edge and experience at going deeper in fights with 12 fights overall going the distance versus just 1 for Duffy. So if he can drag this in deep water, we could see Joe Duffy slow down. But Duffy has gone deep into fights recently, including a 4th round fight in which he lost, but still going 4 rounds is a good experience for a fighter. If Duffy gets put on his back with consistency, he could struggle. But George went 0 for 9 against Rodrigo Dam, who's a very good grappler, but still I think Duffy's going to have similar success shutting him down. Duffy's striking game should simply be too much for the Brazilian. George will struggle to close the distance without taking significant damage. I think Irish Joe uses his length and movement to keep him on the outside, outclass him with his boxing. I think George struggles fighting away from home, and my prediction is Joseph Duffy to defeat Ivan George by knockout. In the co-main event of the evening, we move to the UFC's lightweight divisions. The real deal, Ross Pearson, 19-8-0 with 1 no contest, takes on US of A representative Evan Dunham with a current record of 15 wins and 6 losses. Now, both guys are coming off big wins. Dunham had lost 3 in a row and was desperate for a victory. In that stretch, though, he fought top-level guys. Edson Barbosa, Donald Cerrone, who appears to be the next title challenger, Rafael Dos Anjos, in a fight that many thought Dunham won, or at least did very well. Of course, Dos Anjos, new lightweight champion. And going back a little bit earlier, he fought TJ Grant, who was surging at the time. Obviously, he's not surging anymore. Hopefully, we'll see him in the not-too-distant future. For Pearson, he was coming off a TKO, lost to Ali Quinn at the end of the solid run, where he was actually starting to climb up the rankings. He picked up a pretty impressive knockout of Sam Stout in the second round of that matchup. Now, at the base here, we have a grappler versus a striker. But Ross Pearson, the striker, has shown decent counter-wrestling and the ability to shut down wrestlers. And Evan Dunham, the wrestler, the grappler, has a capable striking game. For Pearson, he's a black belt in Taekwondo, Judo brown belt, and BJJ blue belt. For Dunham, BJJ black belt, and he comes from a solid wrestling background. Pearson, 7 wins by knockout, 5 by submission, and he's 5-3 when going the distance. He has been knocked out 3 times and subbed twice, so certainly he's very capable of getting. People are very capable of finishing this guy. His chin is a bit of a question mark. Aya Quinton knocked him out, Cub Swanson knocked him out, and Cole Miller, way back in the day, one of my first prediction shows, dropped him before submitting him. For Dunham, 3 wins by knockout. He's 6-1 when fights are ended by submission, 6-3 when going the distance. He has 2 losses by knockout with 2 guys that knocked him out, Melvin Gillard and Edson Barbosa, who did it with a body kick. Throw absolute heat. Not saying Pearson can't do it. I'm just saying those 2 guys are flamethrowers. Pearson really developing a strong striking game. Nice right hand, changes levels well when doing it, and really throws off his opponent's field of view. He KO'd Sam Stout with a brutal left hand counter at the end of a combination. He also had old stoppage victories for Gray Maynard, Ryan Couture, and George Soteropoulos. He had some issues, though, against Diego Sanchez with striking with being too busy. That's why he lost, even though he shouldn't have. He relies a little bit too much on his counter-striking, lets his opponent be the aggressor, and that can work actually against him, the Lyoto Machida effect almost. For Evan Dunham on the feet, he has a nice straight jab, will come up with kind of a jab uppercut, which can throw guys off. He works in volumes, throwing 3 and 4 punch combinations, it brings solid pressure, maintains good control of the center of the cage. He's a southpaw, which can throw fighters off, and he's going to have a slight reach and height advantage in this matchup. He has a decent right hand, solid uppercut, serviceable kicking game. He showed a lot more fluidity in his combinations against Rodrigo Dam, but again, Pearson, much better striker than Dam. Good extension when he is connecting, and that's something solid. He gets good extension, really gets out there, but at the same time, if he misses, he tends to overextend himself, and he can be countered. He likes to work at a high-paced brawl is what we'll call it. Averages 5.42 strikes landed per minute. Pearson just short of 4, so even though Pearson throws a lot, Dunham throws significantly more. Dunham gives up about half a strike more strikes absorbed than Pearson, but still with his output, it makes a big difference. On the ground, though, that's where Dunham could have a lot of success. He took Rafael Dos Anjos down 3 times. And overall, we could see a return to grappling for Dunham. Pearson does have an 80% takedown defense, but Gray Maynard had success taking him down in 2 of 4 opportunities. Now, Pearson is the more technical striker. He has more power. But 3 of his last 4 knockout wins were Maynard, G-Sots, and Sam Stout were all over guys coming off knockout losses in earlier fights with starting to develop questionable chins. Pearson's willingness to let opponents come forward and attack won't help him here against Evan Dunham. Maynard had success blending striking and pressure and his wrestling together, and he lacked the durability to carry it out. But what this fight comes down to, I believe, is Dunham's going to remain busier on the feet. He might even hurt Pearson and tag that questionable chin. I think he'll use his wrestling exceptionally well. And my prediction, while a possible finish it could happen, is Evan Dunham to defeat Ross Pearson by decision. The main event of the evening takes place in the UFC's middleweight division as the number 9 ranked Mickael, the Count Bisping, 26-7-0 Ultimate Fighter winner, takes on the 10th ranked former middleweight title challenger Thales Leites of Brazil, with a current record of 25 wins and 4 losses. Now, Bisping's trying to hang on to his top 10 spot and move back up the ranks where he feels he belongs. Leites is trying to start moving into the upper echelon and has looked very good so far. For Bisping, he's alternated wins and losses over his last 9 fights. The win, every time he gets one, tends to push him up in competition, which results in a loss. His last 3 losses have come against Luke Rockhold, Tim Kennedy, which came after a long layoff, and Vitor Belfort, all top-level guys. For Leites, 8-fight winning streak coming into this matchup. This is his second UFC run. He's currently 5-0. As I said, he was a former title challenger. He's had a nice increase in competition with every fight since coming back to the Ultimate Fighting Championships. But his last matchup was a little bit tough against Tim Boetsch, but he got the win nonetheless. For Bisping, he's 2 years older, same height. Leites will have a marked 6-inch reach advantage. For the Brit, he has a BJJ brown belt, primarily a striker though, with improving wrestling. For Leites, works at the Novo União camp, BJJ black belt, 14 wins by submission, averaging 2.59 takedowns at 31%. So you probably know where these guys are going to take this fight to take place, but maybe not the case. For Leites, he has very much improved his striking game. He has 4 wins by knockout, including recent stoppages of Francis Carmont and Trevor Smith, so he's very capable of competing on the feet. He's melding his striking and grappling together much better this time around and has put together a pretty good run as a result. He likes to push forward behind his strikes and clinch up, which is an effective technique. He throws a nice left jab though when he's working at range, overhand right behind it. He throws some nice leg kicks. Will work his jab, right hook combination to swarm Francis Carmont. In his last fight though, he was having trouble with the power and physicality of Tim Boetsch, getting backed up and tagged with some massive shots in the bull rush and dropped on a couple of occasions. He scored a takedown after getting rocked against Boetsch and eventually transitioned to the submission. For Leites, though, he comes in looking for takedowns from the clinch position. He likes to fight in close and some others opponents on the wall, and he does have 8 takedowns in his first 2 UFC fights. The last 3, he doesn't really need them other than the 1 takedown instead of the submission against Boetsch. Now, Bisping is relatively solid takedown defense. We saw that against CB Dalloway, who got deep on a couple of shots and was shucked off by Bisping. When he did get taken down, he got up fairly quickly, but he was dominated the map by Tim Kennedy. But remember, that was preceded by a pretty long layoff. Bisping, though, his MO is striking. Death by accumulation. Puts damage on his opponents over a significant period of time. Averages 4.39 strikes landed per minute versus just 2.47 strikes absorbed. And 15 wins by knockout, which is surprising considering everybody says Bisping has pillow fists. Again, he's not that big one-punch knockout guy. Again, death by accumulation. Against CB, he carried a very quick pace, which was kind of a return to form to him, wore him down, outworked him as the fight went on. He throws a nice lead left jab, can be very spearing with it and catch guys coming forward. Nice 1-2, steps in with his right hand, snappy low kicks, throws a nice switch kick into the head and body. But overall with Bisping, there's a tale of 2 different fighters. When he fought CB Dalloway and Kung Lee, he was confident sitting down on his punches and looked very well coming forward. Versus Vitor Belfort and Luke Rockhold, he was skittish, half committing on his strikes, not sitting down, letting them be the aggressor, and that really took away from his game plan. Against CB, he got clipped with the left hand, but overall he seems to get clipped with from the right side quite a bit. One thing I look at is Bisping, though, has superior cardio. He took out Kung Lee in the 4th round after breaking him down. I think Leites will slow down in this fight. He has slowed down in fights in the past. He hasn't faced anyone that carries Bisping's type of pace. I think Leites could score some takedowns, and he possibly could hurt Bisping, knock him out on the feet. But the more likely scenario is Bisping defends the takedowns, makes him work hard, survives some very close early rounds. He might lose the first 2 rounds. It might be 1-1. It'll be very close either way. And I think Mickael Bisping pulls away in rounds 3, 4, and 5. And could eventually lead to a stoppage, but my prediction is Mickael Bisping to defeat Thales Leites by decision. So those are my 6 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 72. You probably heard some input from my son as we went. I apologize for that if you missed anything. Obviously, you have to go back and listen a second time. The bet packs are hopefully still rolling. Obviously, as UFC Fight Night 71 takes place tonight. All the preliminary predictions will be at kamikazeoverdrive.net. They will be incredibly short. And again, this event takes place early Saturday morning. I'm going to work my butt off to try and get the bet pack posted as soon as possible. It should be posted by Friday night. So keep checking back. Email me if you have any trouble accessing. I will do my best to get it done. It's a lot of work, and we are nearing the end of this shitstorm that has been UFC International Fight Week. Either way, as always, thanks for listening, and let's get it ramped up. We got another one not too far away, UFC on Fox 16. Take care, guys.